So the other week, doing some homework on a new dirt bike for my 7-year-old, started comparing, just local motorsports places. A lot of them sold the SSR brand pit bikes and things like that. Um, I know they're Chinese knockoffs of Hondas. Pretty much everybody knows that. Started seeing multiple different brands, Apollos and a couple others. Ended up finding that the engines are all manufactured by the same company in China, Shenzhen, or however you say it. So I don't see a whole lot of different other than just maybe the company's rebranding. Funny enough, I started looking, and of course, Amazon has motorcycles too. This XPRO is what we ended up finally deciding on. I don't know, Chinese are really good at copying stuff. So I wasn't too worried about the engine. It comes with a year warranty. I ended up buying this actually not off Amazon. I found a different power sports supplier out of California, which I think kind of fills most of the orders for Amazon anyways. But over a week or so, just did the first real oil change on it. There was a few things that you're going to want to take a look at. This one was the ready to run, or whatever they call it, just put gas and go. So it was fully assembled. There were a few things that need to be tweaked or addressed on these things. Overall, this is an awesome little bike. This is the semi-automatic with the 4-speed shift, clutchless. One thing you're going to want to know is it's actually got really high compression. This is the 110cc, so kicking it over is pretty difficult for the young ones. My 7-year-old's pretty athletic, and once this is warmed up, he can actually kick it himself. But cold start, it's going to take an adult, so keep that in mind. The automatics are electric start, but I wanted to get him to actually learn how to shift and ride a real motorcycle, so we went with the semi-automatic version. But there's a couple things I want to point out and kind of just do a little overview on this bike. And now that I've had a few days of tinkering with it, it's rock solid so far. We only had it a week, but every day for 3 or 4 hours a day, my kid's on it. I can't get him off of it. So let me show you a couple things that you're going to want to look out for. And if you're doing your assembly yourself, it's just kind of good notes while you're putting it together to make sure things are routed properly and stuff like that. So the overall quality of this thing, like I say, is pretty good. Actually pretty surprised. The welds look good. Structurally, it's pretty tough. I weigh like 225 pounds, and that little 110 has no problem dragging me around our yard and up the hill. So it's pretty impressive, very quiet. I'll maybe get it running here a little bit later just so you can kind of hear it, but it sounds like a little motocrosser. I was actually really surprised with the compression that it had and everything. But first thing to look for, major problem for me, was the way that they routed the rear brake line. As you can see, it didn't work out very well. They actually had it ran and hidden underneath the exhaust here to where you really couldn't see it at all. So when I put gas in it and fired it up trying to adjust the idle speed, you saw a little bit of smoke coming off the exhaust, and I figured, okay, it's just burning in the paint, something like that. And then it turned into quite a bit of smoke, and then I looked underneath this little crack, and it was touching the pipe, causing it to melt through. That was a big bummer. So yeah, that explains why I blocked off the caliper and actually took the front brake for the time being and adjusted over to the left handle. It's typically on your right on this thing. So that's kind of a Band-Aid. The company that I ordered it from didn't have a problem sending me a new one. It's on the way, but of course you can't next day anything. So that was kind of a bummer. So yeah, double check your cable routing. That's important even if you're putting it together yourself. Get it on the inside of the frame, make sure it clears your exhaust. Second one that I noticed was really odd. I was trying to adjust the idle speed, which you're doing here at the hand grip. And I would have it, I'd be standing on it, whatever. And I'd get it set perfect, and then I'd kind of let the bars move, and then boom, idle would go way up. So I started looking, and of course it's just a regular cable assembly, and it runs right down the neck. I ended up having to pull the tank off, seat and all that stuff. It's super easy. This tank basically holds all the plastics. There's like 3 screws and it falls off. But what I noticed was with the handlebars turning, when it turned left, the RPM would just shoot up because the cable itself wasn't zip tied to the frame. I ended up putting a zip tie up front here by the key and a second one closer to the carb that fixed that problem. So yeah, when you're setting your idle, before you even start, take this tank off, secure that cable. That's gonna save you a lot of headache. Now, the whole reason I actually ended up taking it off was because my vent, the fuel bowl vent, would drip every so often. You could tell the float was just set a little too high. When I bought this, I had all intentions of just going with a Mikuni. They're like 80 bucks, you know what I mean? And just being done with it. But what I didn't find is they use the tamper-proof screws where the head snaps off after they tighten them up. There's just enough room on this washer, if you want to call it whatever, the base of the screw, if it'll zoom in, that you can get a little pair of vice grips on it, loosen it up. I just dropped the float a touch, fixed it, put it back on. That's about the only adjustment I've done to the carb, and there really is no other adjustment than that, unfortunately. It's just kind of is what it is, but so far, one kick, bang, fires right off, idle's perfect, then I secured the cable. I did, which will lead me into the next one, notice that there is some really weird stuff with these throttle assemblies. Let me take this thing off real quick and I'll show you what this thing was doing and why and how to fix it. So once you take your couple Allens out of the bottom of the handle grip assembly, you can actually see the mechanism inside of it. But what this thing was doing, and setting throttle again, was probably the most tinkering I've done on it. There was a noticeable like click that would kind of bind or something on the throttle. So you'd brum, 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 and then it'd idle, set it, and then you'd be able to actually turn and it'd kind of click into place and it would drop idle and die. So these grips, let's see if I can pull this thing apart with one hand. Might not be able to. There it is. So I thought it was something to do with the actual, I don't know what you want to call it, cable guide, whatever. First looking at it, there was a noticeable mark where they molded it. I thought that there was something, the actual plastic of this catching on it. So I just filed it flat, put it back together, did the same thing. And I noticed what the problem was, is this actually moves up and down and kind of binds. If you notice the blue piece that I glued on here, just of plastic, that actually ended up solving the problem. Getting this thing long enough, if you will, to actually be pressed up and held into place by the bottom of the hand grip assembly stopped this thing from clunking back and forth. The cable was literally just slapping around in there, not holding tight to the guide. So that is one thing that I modified. I think the only thing actually that made the difference. And then from there on out, the idle's been perfect on it. So yeah, if you got one of these that you can't hardly set the idle on and it keeps having kind of like almost like a notch or a bind to it, that's your issue. Find a little scrap piece of, I think this was a Valvoline transmission quart bottle or something thickness, but just enough to take that slop out of it once you tighten your Allens down and you'll be set. The only last thing I need to do, just kind of, you're gonna be doing it anyways, but they had the chain set incredibly tight when it came in. Again, this is just little tweaks that you're to be expected, I would say, especially for something in this price bracket. Under $1,000, I really doubt you're gonna find anything better than this. This seems to be pretty solid, doesn't get hot, shifts great, starts every time. I do recommend getting that factory oil out of it quickly. Like I say, I don't know, probably got 6 hours, 7 hours, something like that, of ride time on it. I'm using the Lucas. This stuff is designed for wet clutches. It takes 0.6 of a quart. So again, for as cheap as this is, I think it's $8 or $9 a quart. Get 2 quarts, you get 3 changes out of it. I'm going to be doing it again in 6-8 hours, because you will have some light metal flake, just the nature of the beast with these little air-cooled singles. Now, if it continues after 3 oil changes, then you've got problems, but just some light metal flake in the oil is normal, from what I found. Overall, I would say absolutely cool little bike, sounds great, rides good, suspension works well. Huge upgrade from his last, I don't know if you want to call it mini bike or whatever, with that 3.5 horse Tecumseh on it that doesn't have any rear suspension and the old school stuff that I grew up on. But yeah, I'll have to readjust the idle speed on it because I took the throttle grip off to show you that little mod there. Otherwise, good job. Another unfortunate success of China copying Honda and trying to take the market, but pretty solid little pit bike, even if you are just trying to use it as a pit bike and an adult. I think you'd be happy with it. And I've got the speed limiter screw. Basically, you have hardly any throttle adjustment, and it has plenty of power to pull me around. So, thanks for watching. If you like the video, I'll keep up with it, and any other new mods or fixes or repairs, I will try to keep everybody posted.